What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at Nerd Tees. Ladies and gentlemen, I am back. Welcome to CFL semi-final week of my weekly CFL football pick show for the 2023 CFL season. Playoffs are here. Hashtag GC playoffs. It is an exceptionally exciting time of year. We just had the World Series wrap up last night. Congrats to the Texas Rangers. NHL's fired up. We're at the midway point of the NFL season. It's a great time. We just had the 29th ever sports equinox where all four of the major leagues played a game on the same night. Only the 29th time that's ever happened. It's an incredible time to be a sports fan, and we have careened recklessly into the CFL playoffs. We have our 6 playoff teams. We are ready to roll. I am finally back from my Portugal excursion and finally back to feeling pretty close to myself. You can tell I still got a little bit of congestion there, but we're fighting through this to come back for a CFL playoffs video. Thank you so much to everybody for their incredible words about my trip and hoping I had a great time. It was incredible. It was such an awesome trip. It was such an awesome thing to do for myself. Well, like I said on my NFL live stream, shout out to Caitlin. You are the best. So, the CFL. How did we close the CFL season? Despite the fact that I was on the other side of the world, not the other side of the world, the other side of the Atlantic at least, had a very strong closing to the CFL season. All of my picks I put on Twitter for the 4 weeks or so, I guess, that I had to do that. Pretty strong finish to the CFL season, if I do say so myself. Straight up, finished the season 51-30. Against the spread, just 2 games under 500 at 39-41. And on the totals, I was 10 games underwater at 35-45-1. But here's why I think it's really important to point this out. Entering week 15 of the season, so through the first 14 weeks, I was 21 games underwater on the totals. Entering week 15, I think I was something like 17-38 or something like that. Just wildly underwater. Probably no way I was ever going to make it back. From that point to the end of the season, I was plus 11 because I finished the season minus 10. So I had a really strong finish to the season, specifically with the totals where I struggled all season long. To be 21 games underwater entering week 15 and then ending the season 6 or 7 weeks later only at minus 10, I had a strong finish on the totals. I feel really good about that. Overall on the season, I pulled myself back up above water, 125, 116, and 2 overall on the season, so 9 games over 500. Is it where I want to be? Absolutely not. But considering where we started the season, the first 3 weeks of the year, which were really, really bad, the results were terrible. So to go from that to finishing 9 games above 500, I don't love it. At least I'm a little comfortable with it. Speaking of don't love it, but I'm pretty comfortable with it, CFL Fantasy, which is now, of course, done for the season, does not continue through the playoffs. That's something I'd like to see them change. I'd like to see them do something for the CFL playoffs in terms of a fantasy game, like a DFS fantasy, like they do throughout the regular season. Finished the season with 2,042.8 points in fantasy. It's just under 100 points a week, because obviously 100 points a week would be 2,100. That would have been a nice place to finish. I finished just short of that. That's okay. I did finish just short of my goal, which my ultimate goal was to finish inside the top 500 in CFL Fantasy. I was just outside that at 615 overall, but we're talking about tens of thousands of entries this year, so 615, I think I'll take it. And in the 680 CJOB League, which is Derek Taylor's league, I finished 109th out of, I think it was 900 some entries. I think that was the single biggest. I think it finished as well the single biggest CFL fantasy league in the game. I finished just outside the top 100, so I feel pretty good about that as well. So here we go. The East and West semifinals are on deck, and what's that? Oh, you noticed. Yes, so not only is it CFL fantasy time, not only is it November, it is also Movember, where every single year I shave my face, I grow a mustache, and I raise funds for testicular cancer, prostate cancer, men's mental health. It's something that's exceptionally important to me. I've been doing it for years and years and years now. In the description down below, you are going to find the link to my Movember page. I understand it's a difficult time of year. It's a tight time of year for a lot of people. If you have some funds that you can see your way to donating towards my Movember campaign, I would be greatly, greatly appreciative of that. Once again, it's down in the description down below to this video. If you can donate, fantastic. If not, I totally understand, but the link is there for you. All right, now we go. East and West semifinals. First off, we got the East semifinal, which is the Hamilton Tiger Cats traveling to Montreal to take on the Alouettes, and the Toronto Argos are sitting awaiting the winner of that game in the East final. And then we've got the Calgary Stampeders, surprisingly, traveling to BC to take on the Lions, the winner of which will then have to travel to Winnipeg to take on Zach Collaros and the Bombers in the West final. And I say surprisingly with Calgary because, my God, Saskatchewan should have had that in the bag. Like, look, they're not playing. I'm not going to talk a ton about them, but I mean, the Riders completely let that slip away, and it's no surprise that Craig Dickinson will not be returning as the coach. I understand they went through a lot with injuries this season, but every team goes through injuries. Every team goes through adversity. Every team goes through that. And wow. Look, I'm not a specific fan of the Riders. I'm a fan of the league as a whole. But boy, to let that slip away in the manner that they did, that's got to be really tough for the fan base. I feel for them. Let's start things off in the East with the Hamilton Ticats again traveling to Montreal, taking on the Alouettes. The Ticats will be on the tail end of back-to-back road games, having played on the road in Week 21. Montreal comes into this game as 3.5-point favorites here at home with a total of 48.5. Season series between these two teams was swept by the Montreal Alouettes 3-0, in which they outscored the Ticats 87-46. So pretty strong performance by the Alouettes in these three head-to-head matchups. Now, only one of those three games was played in Montreal, and I made this point about a month ago. It's almost like these two teams should have been jockeying to see which one didn't have to play at home, because both of them felt like they were more dangerous teams away from their home building. But the one game that was played in Montreal was a 22-20 victory by the Alouettes, and that was very late in the season. The Alouettes finished the regular season with an 11-7 mark straight up. They went 10-7-1 against the spread this season, just a little bit underwater on the totals at 8-10. In fact, both of these teams were 8-10 to the over this year. At home, looked a little different, only 5-4 in their home building. So 5 wins in 9 games. You would hope to do a little better than that on your home turf. They were 5-3-1 against the spread in those 9 games, only hitting 3 of 9 overs in Montreal. The Ticats finished the season at 8-10 straight up. They were 9-8-1 against the spread, so a little bit above water against the spread, with again that identical 8-10 mark to the over this year. Hamilton 5-4 away from home. Yes, they're only 3-6 in their home building this year. Above 500 away from home were the Ticats. They had an identical 5-3-1 mark against the spread, and 4-5 to the over in those 9 games. So either way, this probably leans to an under on that relatively high point total. Over the last 4 games, the Montreal Alouettes have been, to put it bluntly, have been pretty darn dominant. They've won all 4 of those games in their last 4, doubling up opponents on average by a score of 30-15. So really successful for them at an 11.1 offensive efficiency and an 18.9 defensive efficiency. So once again, since it's been, a month or so, on offense, you want little number. On defense, you want big number. Montreal did both of those things. An 11.1 mark would have ranked them above some of the elite marks that we've looked at this season. The Ticats were even money in their last 4 games at 2-2, but they did outscore their opponents on average by a touchdown in those games, 28-21, boasting a 14.4 offensive efficiency and a 15 defensive efficiency. So obviously that's a lot tighter. That's a lot closer than Montreal's results. I mean, Montreal, an 11.1 and an 18.9, that just means they're playing elite efficiency on both sides of the ball. Hamilton got the job done, but it's much closer. And some stuff I'm watching out for in this game. Cody Fajardo, since the beginning of August, has been a relatively low event quarterback when you're talking about touchdowns and interceptions. And it's been an even spread since the 5th of August, including the game on the 5th of August. He's thrown 9 touchdowns and 9 picks. And I believe that's in the span of like 10 games. So an exact even number of touchdowns and interceptions, not what you want to see from your starting quarterback. Speaking of starting quarterback, on the other side this time, it looks like the Ticats are going to roll with like a quarterback tandem, which is not something that we see overly often anymore, but it looks like it's going to be like Bo Levi Mitchell and Matthew Schultz getting rotated in and out with playing time. And with a quarterback, I don't understand it. I don't buy the logic, because the quarterback is so momentum driven that if you're going to be constantly rotating, and I understand the CFL does this a lot with like their rushing quarterbacks and stuff like that, so I guess it makes sense, but it sounds like Hamilton is like really going to rotate the quarterbacks. And if you get to this point, because it wasn't always a given that they were going to get to this point with the way they started the season, why did you go get Bo Levi Mitchell if not to win playoff games? Bo should not only be getting the nod here, but the plan should be for him to be playing basically 100% of snaps, other than like, short yardage packages where you might put Matt Schultz in there. But like, you went and got Bo Levi Mitchell. If not for this, then what? The single biggest competition I'm going to be looking at in this matchup is the Alouettes offensive line against the Ticats pass rush. Now, the Ticats were kind of a middling pass rush this year, but all season long we've talked about Montreal's inability to protect the quarterback. They gave up, I think, the second or third most sacks in the CFL this season. The O-line has struggled basically right from the start of the season right through the end. So that's going to be the big matchup. If the Ticats can generate pressure on the defensive line, give Cody Fajardo very little time, we know across the span of his last 9 to 10 games, he will make mistakes. He will throw as many interceptions as he does touchdowns. Cody Fajardo does not have a multi-touchdown game in a long time, but has multi-interception games. We know that this is a possibility. That's going to be the Ticats' path, I think, to winning this football game. Do I think they're going to do that? I did at first. But man, when I sat down and ran those efficiency numbers, I believe in this statistic so much that, and understanding just how efficient the Alouettes have been over the last month, I believe in that stat enough that I'm going to go with the Alouettes. I do think they're the better team top to bottom, and especially if Hamilton is not going to say, you know what, we're going to live or die with Bo Levi Mitchell, this is why we went and got the guy, then it's just tougher to go with them. I'm going to go with the Alouettes here. Let's take Montreal at home to get the win over the Ticats, and it's only 3.5. I might as well lay the minus 3.5 on the Alouettes here as well. Total in the game set at 48.5. I have no reason to go over on this one. Let's stick under the 48.5 point total. And let's go, let's say Montreal 24, Hamilton 17. Let's go something like that. Stays under the point total. Montreal covers against the spread and wins the game outright. And before we preview the West Final, of course, we'll take a moment to shout out my great friends and sponsors at Nerd Tees, and they are definitely helping me through this one. Ladies and gentlemen, nerdtees.ca is where you need to go to find dozens and dozens of incredible loose leaf tea, estate coffee, and flavored coffee blends. No matter what your taste palette, no matter what you prefer, you're going to find some great options at nerdtees.ca, including today's blend, which is Black Forest Cake. It's the same blend that I had on my NFL live stream on Tuesday. A dessert tea that smells delicious and tastes delicious. Put a little bit of milk in there. You got yourself a nice cup of tea. You can find incredible options on nerdtees.ca. Christmas is coming up. It's time to get on that website now. If not now, when? Nerdtees.ca. The promo code is BWFinest. You're going to want to use that code to save 15% at checkout on any order over $100. You're also going to get free shipping. So get your 15% savings. Get your free shipping on any order over $100. Great conversion rate on the US dollar if you're one of my American viewers. Nerdtease.ca. It's where you need to go to find yourself something to love or find someone you love something to love. Head to nerdtease.ca. Time to go to the West Final, where I believe the matchup, at least by the numbers, is a little bit closer than it might seem. So obviously we talk about the Calgary Stampeders kind of moonwalking their way into the playoffs, getting a ton of help from a Saskatchewan Roughriders team that just simply couldn't hold on to things down the stretch. The season series between these two teams, the BC Lions and the Calgary Stampeders, 2-1 in favor of BC, so 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And the Lions did outscore Calgary in those games, but not by a huge margin. It was 78-65. In BC, the margin gets even tighter. They played 2 games at BC Place this year, split those games 1-1, the Lions holding a marginal scoring edge of 53-50 in those 2 games. Lions finished the season with a very successful mark of 12-6 straight up. They were, however, a little bit under 500 against the spread at 8-9-1, finishing the season at 11-6-1 to the over, so a lot of points to be had in BC Lions games. At home, they did have a fairly successful season as well, 6-3 in their home building, only going 3-5-1 against the spread, which was kind of an interesting mark, hitting 5 of 9 overs at 5-3-1. Calgary Stampeders stumbling to a 6-12 record in their first full season with Jake Maier as their starting quarterback, going 9-9 even money against the spread and only hitting 7 of 18 overs at 7-10-1. On the road, they were a team that struggled, only 3-6 overall, but they were 5-4 against the spread. So they were a little bit better against the spread on the road than they were at home, going 3-5-1 to the over, only hitting 3 of 9. In their last 4 games, respectively, each of these teams went even money 2-2 straight up, but they did that in very different ways. The BC Lions being outscored in those 4 games by nearly a full touchdown, 27-33. On average in those 4 games, the defense really struggling down the stretch for the BC Lions. They put up a 14.7 mark in offensive efficiency and only 13.1 on the defensive side. Once again, you want little number on offense, big number on defense. The BC Lions were not that. However, you can certainly make that argument about the Calgary Stampeders. They were 2-2. They only outscored opponents on average in their last 4 games by a single point, 24-23. But you look at the efficiency numbers, 11.9 on offense, 16.6 on defense. So by an efficiency perspective, they're doing what you want to do. So again, kind of what I'm watching out for in this game. The stout Lions defense that we talked about at the beginning of the year feels like an absolute thing of the past. They've given up 25 points or more in 9 consecutive games and 10 of their last 11. They've had like one really, really good defensive performance in their last 11 games, which is it's more than half of the season. So that stout Lions defense took a back seat towards the end of the season and really the whole back half. And like I mentioned, the Calgary Stampeders come into this game playing their most efficient football of the season on offense and on defense. We talked about they had some offensive efficiency successes earlier in the season. Defensively, for most of the season, from an efficiency perspective, the Stamps have been a bit of a black hole. Like, they haven't been all that good. But on offense and on defense, from efficiency perspectives, they are playing their best football right now, and it's when you want to be playing your best football. One aspect of this game that's going to be really interesting to me is going to be the run games. Taquan Mizell, Peyton Logan, and Kadeem Carey are all on their team's respective injury lists right now. Dedrick Mills is not, and it looks like maybe Dedrick Mills might get the start as the de facto healthiest back for the Stampeders. I'm not sure what the Lions are going to do, because basically they got Taquan Mizell and behind him And I really came into this game feeling run the ball, win the game, because I think both of these offenses can put up numbers in the pass game, but the one of these two offenses that can really break out and run the ball the most successfully, I feel like is the one that's going to have the edge and who's ultimately going to win the game. Given that being the case, I actually like the upset here. I like the Calgary Stampeders to go into BC and upset the BC Lions. I can't, in all good consciousness, bet with a team that's giving up 33 points a game over their last 4. The defense has caved in on itself. And it's not like it's a problem just in those 4 games. You spread out more than the entire back half of the season. It's been a problem. So I can't personally go with it. I'm going to take the upset, and I'm going to take the Calgary Stampeders on the road in BC to upset the BC Lions. So since I'm going to do that, even though BC's coming off a bye, they didn't play last week, they're going to be well rested and ready to roll, or at least they should be. I'm going to take Calgary to win the game straight up. Give me the plus 6.5 on the Calgary Stampeders, and give me the over on the points. Because if BC's potentially going to give up 30, I can definitely see them getting over 20. So the number here is 49.5. It's a big number, but I have to take the over because, my God, that defense for the Lions just looks terrible. So there you go, folks. Those are my picks for the Eastern and Western semifinals. I've got the Hamilton Ticats losing to the Montreal Alouettes in Montreal. Final score there, I think we said, was 24-17. So we'll take Montreal to win, take Montreal to cover the minus 3.5, and give me the under on the points. And I got the Calgary Stampeders upsetting the BC Lions. Let's go 34-24. So let's go Calgary beating BC 34-24. Give me the plus 6.5 on the Calgary Stampeders and give me over that point total of 49.5. Ladies and gentlemen, hashtag GC playoffs. They're here and they're spectacular. Playoff time in the Canadian Football League. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at NerdTees. Welcome back to me, to the video sphere. Thank you so much for everybody showing me a lot of love on for my trip and on my trip, and the patience to wait for me to come back. I am back. Let's kill these Grey Cup playoffs. Enjoy the games on Saturday. We will see you again for the East and West finals.